So what we want to do is we want to add a cube. So if you go to top left here to polymodeling, and then select the cube. So we want to make this bigger. So if you press R on your keyboard with your cube selected, you can scale it up. So if you select the middle and drag it out, it'll scale up your cube equally. Now we want to flatten it slightly. So select the top green line here and just drag it down. So that's our base of our trap created. So we need to add the spikes. So if you go to polymodeling at the top left here again, you're going to add the cone. So we want to see our model from the top. So if you press space, it'll take you all into your different views. So top, perspective, side, front. We want top. So if you hover your mouse over it and press space again. So if you press W, you can move your cone. So we want to move it up to the top left corner. So just here. So we want to make this spike bigger as well. So if you press space again, go to perspective, hover your mouse over it, press space again. So let's scale it up a bit. So press R, scale it up, just drag it up. Drag the top one so it lengthens it. So that's about just right. So we'll go into our side view so we can drag it and move it into our base. So we press space again, go to side. So if you're not in wireframe mode, just press 4 on your keyboard. So press W to move, we'll just move it up so it's halfway in our base here. There we go. So now we want to go back into our top view. We want to duplicate these spikes in a row all across our base. So with our cone selected, press Ctrl D. Let's move this along. Ctrl D again. You want them evenly spaced. Ctrl D. Just select each one. Smooth them so they're equal. So with your row selected, you can press Ctrl D and you can duplicate the whole row. Let's keep doing this. So they're not equal at the top and the bottom now. So what we can do, go to your outliner. If your outliner is not showing up, go to Windows at the top and then just select outliner. So select all our cones. So shift select them, just drag them up so they're equally spaced. So that's that done. So press space, go into your perspective so we can see the model more clearly. So we want a top to our trap, so it gives the illusion of a floor, like a false floor. So all you have to do, select your cube to the base, Ctrl D, and you've got the top. So you can see our cones are going through our actual model here. So what you can do, to return to your normal view as well from wireframe mode, just press 5 on your keyboard and it'll give you a normal display. So what we first need to do is you want to hold right click and go to face, or you can, if you've got your modelling toolkit here, select this one here with the face, little cube with the face selected. I like to press right click and press select face. It's a bit quicker. So going to get rid of these faces here. So if you just select, left click and select them, delete them. Or a quick way, go into your side view here, just left click and drag, make sure this top line one isn't selected. See top face, and just delete them. You can see the cones are piercing through our plane. So what you want to do is left click and drag and select everything except your top cube here. Go to mesh, booleans, and then select union. You can see it's combined them and got rid of the extra faces that we don't need. So we want to punch some holes through our false floor so the spikes go through them when we animate it. So what you can do is select your spike floor, and we want to duplicate it, because when we cut the holes in, it'll get rid of our original mesh. So just Control D to duplicate it, select your top, press W and just move it down. So go into our side view, just move it down so it's just above our spike floor here. You're going to select your top, select the spikes, go to mesh again, and then booleans, and then select difference. So now, when we move this back up, you can see it's cut the holes into our floor. So what we need to do now is move the top of our trap into position. So if we go into our side view, we just want to move this down just so it's just above the tip of our spikes. So if we now select both sections of our trap, go to mesh, and then combine. So it's combined our two meshes together. And then finally, go to edit at the top left, delete all by type and history. It cleans up our outliner here. So that's the model finished. What we need to do now is rig our model so we can animate it. So if we go to the top left here, to this drop down menu and select rigging, go up to skeleton, and then we're going to create joints. This is what's going to create our rig. So if we go into our side view, we want a joint just below our model, a joint at the start of the model. This is a joint that's going to animate our spikes going through the floor, and then we'd want one more joint just at the top of the model here. So that's the rig created. What we need to do now is attach this rig to our model. So go into our outliner and shift select your rig and your actual model, go to skin at the top, and then bind skin. So now if we select one of our joints, press W, it'll move it up. So it'll move it, but we want this joint here. This joint here just to affect the spikes, nothing else. So we can do this by painting skin weights. So to start painting skin weights, select your mesh, go up to skin, down to paint skin weights, and select this box here to get the menu up. So we're going to start with our second joint. So this one here, we want this joint to only affect the spike level, so the bottom bit, not the top here. So if we select our joint, you can see that it's pretty much all white. So if it's white, this means it will affect that part of the mesh. If it's grey, it will only slightly affect it. If it's black, so if I select the first one, so our first joint, you can see it's black at the top. This means it doesn't affect that area of the mesh at all. So we need to sort this out. So if we're going to our second joint now, we don't want it to affect this top bit here. So we can do this. So if we first lock our third joint, so the one at the top, so this one here, we need to lock it by checking that little padlock there, and we want our second joint and our first joint unlocked. So whatever skin weights we get rid of in our second joint will now go into our first joint. Our goal is to make sure there's no skin weights in our third joint, because we don't want this joint to affect anything. So if we select our second joint, you can see the brush is represented by this red circle here with the cross in the middle. You can change the size of this brush by holding B and moving your mouse left to right. Left makes it smaller, right makes it bigger. So we want to make sure that the whole top section here is black. So we can do this. We're going down to value in our tool settings. So it's 0, which means it will be black, the value is black. If we increase it to 1, it'll be completely white, and anywhere in the middle will be grey, dark grey or light grey. So we want it black, so we'll change it to 0. Now we can start painting. So now the top's completely black. We need to make the bottom completely white. You can see it's sort of an off-white. We need to make this completely white. So with your second joint selected, go down to value and increase this to 1. And now you can see you can start painting this section completely white. Make sure you get it all white, so you can see in here it's slightly grey as well, so start painting these as well. So that's our second joint sorted. You can see the bottom's completely white and the top's completely black. So we'll lock our second joint. What we need to do now is go into our third joint and make sure our third joint is completely black. So we can do this. If we unlock it, keep your first joint unlocked, so whatever we get rid of in our third joint will go into our first joint, the one at the bottom. Decrease your value to 0. With your third joint selected, you can start painting. So now you can see in our first joint we've got skin weights that should only be in our second joint, so in the spike section. So we need to get rid of these now. So if we unlock our first joint and unlock our second joint, make sure your third joint's locked. Select your first joint, change your value to 0. You can start getting rid of these here. Make sure it's all completely black. So when you finish painting all your skin weights, they should look something like this. So your first joint, the one at the bottom, sorry, this one here, should only affect the top. Your second joint should only, so this one here, should only affect the bottom, so the spikes and what the spikes are attached to. And your third joint should have no skin weights painted in it at all. So we can When you select our second joint and move it up, so press W, you can see it only affects the bottom. So now we can start animating. What we need are 3 different animations. One of the trap in its normal state without any animation on it, one of the trap activating, and one of the trap deactivating. So we'll export our first animation, the one with the trap with no animation on it, sorry. So what you need to do, go to File in the top left, go down to Export All, check the menu, and make sure it's in FBX, and then export it. So go down to your time slider here. If you don't have your time slider or your range slider, go to Windows, down to UI elements, and you can check your time slider and your range slider here. So now we need to animate our trap activating and deactivating. So our animation's only going to be 30 frames long. If your time slider doesn't have 30 frames on it, you want to go here. This is going to be your first frame. So we want to start from our first frame, so 1, and I want our animation to end on frame 30. So we go here, put 30 in here. So at the moment I can't see my whole time slider from frame 1 to 30. So what I just need to do is go here, left click, just drag it along. We can see all our time slider here. So let's start animating. So we want to select our second joint, so this one here. Press W so we can move it. Go to our time slider, move the slider to frame 1. We want it to start off in a sort of in the normal position. Press S, and it adds a keyframe. You can see it represented here by the red line. Move the slider to frame 15. We want our animation to be quite quick, so the player can't escape the trap too easy. Move our trap upwards. And press S again. You can see it add the keyframe. So now we want it to move back to its original position. So if we just select our keyframe, right click, and copy it, go to frame 30, right click, and we can paste it. If you wanted your trap to be a bit quicker or slower, what you can do is select the keyframe, shift select it, and you can drag and move it along here. So if you wanted your trap to be slower or quicker, I'm just going to move mine back to frame 15. So that's it animated. So if I put my time sliders to the start position, and press play, you can see it moving backwards and forwards. But we want 2 animations, one of it going up and one of it going down, and we want to export those separately. So we can do this by adjusting our range slider, and exporting it. So we want it to start from our first frame for the first animation of it activating. I want it to end on our 15th frame, so when it reaches the top. So all we need to do, put frame 1 here, put frame 15 here. So now when we press play, it only plays up to that point. And then when we export it, so File, Export All, make sure it's an FBX export, and export it, it will only export from frame 1 to 15. So now we need our second animation of it returning back to its normal position. So again, we want our first frame to be frame 15 and our last frame to be frame 30. So when I play it, it reverts back to its normal position. So again, File, Export All, FBX Export, and then when we export it, it'll be from frame 15 to 30.